The Atlantic Council's report singled out Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, and Cuba as the most representative of China's relationships in Latin America. For more on this, CCTV's Rachelle Akuffo spoke with Enrique Dussel Peters. He's the director of the Institute for China-Mexico Studies at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. Rachelle began by asking what makes these countries so significant.
China and Latin America have engaged in the last decade in a very intense relationship, starting from trade to foreign direct investment from China in the region, massive financing, and also very recently very important infrastructure projects. And a lot of this intensity, if you want to, in the relationship of Latin America with China has started with these countries. So it's no coincidence, no?
Now, these are some very diverse economies, but which countries would you say have the biggest role to play when it comes to advancing the relationship with China?
There are a group of countries that have very different relationships with China today. You can start with Cuba. Cuba has an old political relationship with China, and in the last 10 or 15 years, China has become very important to modernize its infrastructure. But also other countries such as Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and Peru have become also important recipients of Chinese foreign direct investment. And at the end, you have other countries such as Mexico, for example. China is the second main trading partner of Mexico for more than 15 years now, although we have received very little investment so far. No? So the relationship with China from a Latin American perspective is pretty heterogeneous.
Now, you mentioned FDI from China. We've seen it's actually been slipping with Argentina, but meanwhile with Brazil, even just as recently as May of 2015, we've seen $50 billion, a wide range of themes covered, including agriculture and mining. Why do you think there's that disparity?
Today, China is the second major source of foreign direct investment for Latin America, according to ECLAC, or the Economic Commission for Latin America. So China is very important for the region in terms of FDI. However, FDI from China to Latin America has so far been highly concentrated in a group of countries, particularly Brazil, Venezuela, Peru, and Argentina. Other countries such as Mexico and Central America, including the Caribbean, have so far received very little FDI from China, although expectations are very high for the short term.
Now, as China makes a shift to a more slower, more sustainable growth, which countries do you think are going to see the biggest impact of that slowdown?
Mainly the countries that depend on exporting raw materials to China, which is soya beans, oil and gas, but also minerals and meat, among others, which means countries such as Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Venezuela are going to feel the lower demand or the lower dynamism of China's demand, and they have already felt this. No? If you go to Argentina, to Brazil, to Venezuela, the impact of lower prices have already been very important, and as a matter of fact, for the first time in more than 10 years, trade between Latin America and China fell in 2014, mainly as a result of falling prices.
The theme of this whole study was the win-win relationship. In your opinion, what's it going to take for this to become a win-win relationship, not only for the countries, but for the people who live in those countries?
In general, there is a very positive perception of China in Latin America. So the basis is very good, and the challenge is then to accompany trade, foreign direct investment, infrastructure projects with institutions, with political institutions. I think that Latin America and China today have excellent conditions to allow for such a win-win relationship.